The four angels sounded his trumpet. A third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, and also a third of the night. Do you see how this is coming in thirds? This is an important point, that these things are coming in thirds, because it gives legitimacy to what the Bible is saying. If it says it's going to happen all over the earth at the same time, then people would say that's bull, because physics doesn't allow that to happen. You can't have a meteor shower coming from all directions. They usually come from a certain direction, because our earth is rotating around the sun. So it's going to hit part of the earth, not all of the earth at the same time. The Bible tells us that. You know, the Bible was also the first source to tell us that the earth was round. And in man's ignorance, for thousands of years, they thought the earth was flat. Don't get on that ship and go out there in the ocean. You're going to fall off the earth. Come on. All they had to do was read the Bible, where it says that it was an orb. So this is a credible source. Okay, I just want to make the point that our instruction manual, our life instruction manual from our creator, from our manufacturer, who gave us this instruction manual, tells us how to live, tells us what's good, what's bad, and is telling us of past, current, and future events. You know, these judgments of God don't end with asteroid impacts. The fourth judgment allows the first three trumpets, and the result is the sun, the moon, and the stars go dark. It's conceivable that the darkness that John saw is similar to what occurred in the northern part of the U.S. during 1980 with Mount St. Helens. It was midnight at 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock during the day. It was black. You know, the effects of a giant earthquake or asteroids impacting would also cause a fragile balance of the tectonic plates. Now, we know our tectonic plates and rumblings that are going on under the earth right now because of our magnetic pole shift. Things are already in flux. What if we got hit now when the Earth's digestion is taking this path of least resistance, coming up between the tectonic plates, coming up out of earthquakes? You remember in the program when we talked about these earth changes, I told you and proved as much as I can do over the air that the result of this was an increase in earthquakes and an increase in volcanoes. And here a week later, we have 3 volcanoes in the Ring of Fire all going off at once, 2 in Alaska and 1 in Mexico. The one in Mexico is actually spewing lava as we speak. Both of the ones in Alaska are ready to go. They're rumbling, they're giving off steam, they're giving off ash. They're ready to go. The Ring of Fire is, quote unquote, on fire, my friends. This is exactly what we were talking about. The Bible not only predicts that, it predicts the earthquakes, it predicts the volcanoes, but it also predicts these meteor strikes. These tectonic plates, my friends, are they're readjusting. Our weather patterns are readjusting to this magnetic pole shift. You know, there's magma and ash and explosions that are coming all over the Ring of Fire. There's other volcanoes that are not erupting, but they're rumbling. The first 3 trumpets sent megatons of dust and soot and debris into the atmosphere. Hundreds of volcanoes will be erupting in the Ring of Fire. It's going to belch more dust in the form of volcanic ash, causing extended darkness around the world. All it has to do is hit the jet stream. If we have, think about this. Let's put this in perspective. If we had even these 3 volcanoes all erupt within a day or 2 of each other, the one in Mexico and the 2 in Alaska, all along the continental shelf of America, 2 in Alaska, 1 in Mexico. If they all spewed ash at the same time, if the ash from all 3 of these hit the jet stream would carry this ash around the world. Just from 3 volcanoes, it would be able to be seen around the world. John predicts a third of the world will be burned up. A third of the trees were burned up. All the green grass is burned up. Now, yeah, I think it's very interesting that he's using a third of the earth burned, a third of the trees, a third of the green grass. You know what? He uses 1/3 12 times. 12 times throughout the description of the 7 trumpets. A third of the earth will be burned up. A third of the trees will be burned up. A third of the sea will turn to blood. A third of the sea creatures will die. A third of the ships on the sea will sink. A third of the rivers and springs become contaminated. A third of light from the sun will be taken away. A third of light from the moon will be taken away. A third of the light from the stars will be taken away. A third of the day will be without light. A third of the night will be without light. And a third of mankind will be killed in the 6th trumpet war. All in thirds. Do you see a pattern here? What's God trying to tell us about the use of 1/3? I think it has to do with God's generosity. He destroys 1/3, but he spares 2/3. Yeah, he destroys 1/3, but 2/3 of us are spared. He could do like it was in the times of Noah. What did he do then? What happened then with the gene of the Nephilim when they mixed themselves with human beings? What did they do there? If you summed it all up, what did they do? They went in and tweaked God's formula, God's DNA formula, and that crossed the line. God said, "You've crossed the line. You don't mess with my formula." And he sent the flood and wiped them out. What are we doing today? We're cloning cells and embryos. We've already cloned animals. We're now cloning cells so that we can grow human parts to replace other human parts. I did a story a couple programs ago where they have messed with the DNA so that a child that was born has the DNA of 3 parents. 3 parents, where they inserted DNA from a 3rd person. This baby, who's now alive, has the DNA of 3 people. This starts a line, a chain of succession, where all of the descendants of this person is going to have multiple DNAs. God did not intend for us to have the DNA of 3 people. It's a man and a woman that creates the DNA that is his formula. We're now messing with the same DNA that caused the last destruction. Do you think he's going to put up with it this time? He didn't put up with it last time. How smart do you have to be to figure this out? Unless you're, of course, a godless person who doesn't believe in creation and thinks there is no God, that this is a formula that's here for us to tweak. Well, it's not, my friends. You know, in the Bible, when a tribal nation refused to pay tribute to a king who claimed higher authority over their territory, it was common practice for the offended king to attack the defiant city and destroy it. Men, women, and children. In Deuteronomy 2:34, if the king was in a generous mood, he'd spare 1/3 of the nation from destruction so he could maintain his tax base. This happened during the reign of King David. And here's what it says in 2 Samuel. It said, David also defeated the Moabites who refused to pay him tribute. He made them lie down on the ground and measured them off with a length of cord. Every 2 lengths of them were put to death, and the 3rd length was allowed to live, so that the surviving Moabites became subject to David and brought tribute, tax. They paid their tax. He also dealt with Israel in a parallel pattern. He tolerated Israel's rebellion for a lot of centuries. But when the cup was filled, God killed 2/3 of Israel when he sent his servant Nebuchadnezzar to destroy him. Jeremiah 25 said, because God is a generous king, he spared 1/3 by putting them in Babylonian exile. He told Ezekiel, 1/3 of your people will die in the plague or perish by famine inside you. 1/3 will fall by the sword outside your walls, and 1/3 I will scatter in the winds and pursue with a drawn sword. Did you notice it's God's use of his judgment, the sword, the famine, and the plague? Did you notice 2/3 were killed? Again, he's dealing in thirds. He does it again in Zechariah. In the whole land declares the Lord. 2/3 will be struck down and perish. 1/3 will be left in. The third I will bring into the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name and I will answer them. I will say they are my people, and they will say the Lord is our God. So to do things in 1/3 is commonplace for God. He's been doing it for a long time. So in these end-time prophecies, when he says that 1/3 of the earth will be burned up, 1/3 of the grass, 1/3 of the water is on, all of this 1/3 is a reoccurring theme. It's a pattern that God has used in the past that I think we can put pretty good confidence in that he's going to use in the future. All right. I don't want to burn up too much time on this because I want to get to another aspect of this. And the other aspect is this Wormwood and the peoples that he's talking about symbolic? I'm going to try to put this in context. Now, this really didn't take a lot of research. You know, when you go through these prophecies and you get up to the point where he says all of these things are going to happen, you really have to leave the context that comes before it and that comes after it to come up with a Planet X scenario the way that conspiracy theorists say it is. Now, I'm going to keep this in context and show maybe a different perspective. So you decide for yourself. I mean, you folks are a little bit smarter than everybody else. So you take what we've talked about so far with what we're going to talk about now. Compare and weigh the two. Let the Holy Spirit speak to your heart. Let your common sense rule. We're going to go there in just a minute. I need to take this short break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to W. Dean Shook, In Time Prophecy News and Current Events. Stay tuned.
Professional identity thieves constantly search your information for vulnerabilities. At LifeLock, relentless protection of your identity is their primary mission. They help ensure that you stay ahead of identity thieves. LifeLock is first in the industry to offer proactive identity theft protection. They're level 1 compliant under the payment card industry data security standards. They have direct access to fraud resolution teams within their extensive network of lenders and service providers. They are experts through leadership with internationally recognized experts in privacy and security, technologies, fraud, and criminal methods. They also partnership with FBI law enforcement and the National Organization for Victims Assistance. Sign up today at wdeanshook.com and receive a 30-day free trial and 10% off your final purchase. The W. Dean Shook program has partnered with LifeLock to make sure your identity remains safe and secure, guaranteed. Get your 30-day free trial of LifeLock's industry-leading protection at wdeanshook.com. That's wdeanshook.com. Go
GoDaddy offers everything you need to make a name for yourself on the web, from